Alright, hello everybody, welcome to iCommand, it's TV Boy here, and we are 1 month into Season 9 playtesting, and that means it's time for a point 1 update. That's right, this is the part where we take all your feedback on the cards, look at all the playtesting game logs, and just really try to hammer out and make fixes we think are needed to the cards based on what we're seeing happening out there in the playtest games, in the leagues, and the pickup games on Vassal. It's a lot of fun, actually. I think getting to see the cards change, especially now that we've condensed our window down to, I think we're doing just 2 months now. Used to be 4 months, which turned out to be way too long. People lost interest. People lose interest after about a month and a half, it seems. So we got it down to 2 months. The next update is going to be after another month of playtesting. And then we're going to have the last update, and then we're going to do the community vote after, I think, 1 week of after the last update, so people have a chance to test the final changes before they vote. And that's actually going to be happening. I think the cards are going to be finalized maybe about 1 or 2 weeks before Adepticon. So it's going to be pretty exciting for those of you who are going to be playing at the Adepticon tournament. Maybe a little bit, I don't know, confusing or not sure what to use when it's so soon after a new card season comes out. Personally, I actually like it when there's a big tournament right after a new batch of cards drops. I think it rewards skill, people who have good card evaluation skills and are able to come up with creative strategies rather than just folks who look at what's been ground out over the last 3 or 4 months of play and just take whatever the strongest list is from that. So that's my personal opinion, though. I know some people like to be comfortable with the cards they're playing when they go to a big tournament, and I completely understand that. But the way it works, that's just the way it works out. So here are your cards. These are their 9.0 versions. I'm going to be opening up the article I just put out. Let's see. Here we go. So this article is up on the main site. So if you want to learn more about why the changes were made, the article I put up has details for each of the changes, why they were made, what changes were made, and why. I'm going to go a little more in depth here with this video, and I'm going to be showing you guys some example games to kind of show what we've been looking at as we've been watching the playtesting process unfold amongst the players. We had 16 players playing in the playtest league this time, and we went through 3 rounds, including 1 week before that where players had access to the Vassal module with all the cards, and we're playing casual games to kind of warm up. So I'm going to be going through that. This is going to be kind of like my highlights video from weeks 1 to 3, or really 1 to 2.5 that I did earlier. So I'm going to try and show some different games, but I'm going to try and show games that are very illustrative, I think, of what we were looking at when we were making these changes. So let's get into it. We've got, starting off with A New Hope. So as you can see here on the bottom right, New Hope has changed, is now not -2 points, it's -1 point. And the other change is that when you use the ability, you have to remove the card that you play from the game instead of putting it in the discard pile. And so the reason for that is that, number one, we found that it was way too easy to recycle super powerful cards like Son of Skywalker and redraw them when you're able to just play them with any figure, and then you can recycle them with Leia. I know that sounds like common sense, sounds pretty obvious when you say it out, when we say that out loud, but the reason that it wasn't addressed was because we knew that Leia already had the ability to do that with her unique command card, which got reworked in Season 7. I'm going to open up my first example game for this just so I can get it ready. And it didn't feel like it would be all that different here. You know, you just one less card, but more options. But it turns out it's a lot different when you only have to redraw one command card out of your deck every time you shuffle it back in, rather than having to redraw both parts of a combo. So this is a game that was played. I'm going to show you guys kind of what I'm talking about here. Oh, the reason for points cost change is not just to make it, you know, less expensive. The real reason was that nobody was playing Obi-Wan. We saw the same 6 figures all the time with the list, and that's a problem when we have a pre-built list, because we don't want people to just always be playing against the same figures. We want some variety within these lists, or at least a little bit. so that it keeps it from getting stale, especially if the list is good, like even as ends up being better than we wanted it to be, and people play it a lot. At least hopefully there's some variety within it, that it feels different, a little bit different each time you play against it. We obviously don't want that to be the case. We want it to just be part of your healthy balanced meta in the morning. But nobody was running Obi-Wan. Everybody was spending the 39 points for the 6 figures and then the 1 skirmish upgrade. And we realized, or the idea we had was, how do we make it so that Obi-Wan's a lot more attractive as a possibility or as a variant of this list? And the idea was, well, what if we just increase the point by 1, then all of a sudden it costs 40 points if you want to bring the 6 strongest figures that are possible, and you don't get access to a skirmish upgrade anymore, right? And that's huge, because there's a huge difference between 1 and 0 skirmish upgrades versus like 2 to 1 skirmish upgrade, because there's so many powerful upgrades you can bring for 1 point that radically boost the list in terms of what it can do or cover a weakness. For example, smuggling compartment for 1 point, effectively a card draw for 1 point when you are able to move the top and bottom cards around and you're digging for just one specific card. Obviously it doesn't increase the volume of the number of cards in your hand turn to turn, but if you're looking for that one specific card in your deck, smuggling compartment is amazing at doing that. It's almost like drawing 2 cards, because you're looking at the bottom as well to see if it's back down there. And that's what this deck really wants to do, is it wants to keep redrawing 1 good command card each turn to be able to play them with the effect of New Hope. Another one, it protects your hand from spy cards and disruption. It keeps your powerful command cards safe from that. Another one is Balance of the Force. You know, you're trying to run On the Lam, Debts Repaid, Son of Skywalker all in the same list. That's 9 points. You're getting with 3 cards, you're getting way over half of 15 points. Balance of the Force can really help out with increasing the strength density of the cards in your command deck, so you're not just all 3s or all 0s and 1s. Other examples, extra armor helps with defense. I'm sure I'm missing something, but anyway, yeah, so 1 point gives you access to a lot of stuff. Yeah, so increasing the point by 1, we're hoping now that with that in play, if you want to bring a skirmish upgrade like one of those that you can really build your lists around, you know, Obi-Wan all of a sudden looks a lot better now. You know, to cut either Chewie or Han, and that frees up, actually you get 3 or 4 army points to spend on skirmish upgrades. So so hopefully that is going to help with making Obi much more attractive as an option. Otherwise you can just bring the 6 strongest ones, but you don't get any list building variety other than your command deck in your cards that you get to bring. So hopefully that punishes that just a little bit, that people are not going to want to do that. Okay, so let's look at this game. Hopefully you guys can see the dice there. Yeah, so what we've got is New Hope list up against the Scum list. So this one's Mark against Colin. Mark used Son of Skywalker round 1 with Chewie, and able to deal some more damage on this positioning that Colin's got here down on the bottom objective. So did damage and then ended up taking some damage, and now I'm going to use On the Lam. I'm going to try and not do play by play. I wanted to get through something specific here. So then round 2, after Chewie did his stuff, he was able to shuffle Son of Skywalker back into the deck with Leia here. So he played Son of Skywalker with A New Hope, shuffled it back in, and then in round 2 was able to use New Hope again. This time when Luke died, he was able to use Debts Repaid with Han Solo to ready and activate him once again. Allowed him to not only get an extra attack off with Han, but also able to get a better positioning so he could do an actually useful end of round attack. And in round 3, Mark, playing A New Hope, is eventually down to just Leia and 3PO. Han Solo dies here. But he had redrawn Son of Skywalker once again after he had shuffled it back in round 2. So now going to be able to play it a second time here with Leia after dealing some damage to Afra. Plays Son of Skywalker here, able to attack Afra again and get the kill. and you can't see the points here. Let me zoom out a little bit. There's 31 to 35. And then after she played Son of Skywalker, she shuffled it back in again. So going into round 4, he redrew it again because he was down to just like 3 cards left in the deck. Redrew it, played it for a 3rd time in round 4 after Leia managed to survive all of this nonsense. Plays the Son of Skywalker here after she had already attacked and then focused up with 3PO. Actually waits for Bib to activate. And then is able to move down and get the kill on the Jawa here for the win. So you could see that was kind of the beginnings of it. And then I actually played a game with A New Hope because I wanted to really try and really focus down on what happens if you really focus on Leia with these Son of Skywalker plays. So I was playing a game against prequel content creator J-Jax. Played a really great game here, a very cagey game of positioning on this very small map. And I was playing against his Soren droid list, so he was using General Soren to give his droids extra surge abilities, particularly Surge for Stun. And that actually really hamstrung my options for getting off battlefield leadership attacks with Leia. So it was actually a pretty good counter almost to this list, where I was trying really use Leia to get lots of extra attacks with Son of Skywalker and battlefield leadership. So I ended up using Son of Skywalker for the first time with Chewie in round 2, mostly to unstun him and just move away and to get out of J-Jax's kill box. And then I was able to shuffle Son of Skywalker back in with Leia using military efficiency. And I actually used battlefield leadership here to attack Fennec, who is down there under the red supply crate objective. 2 attacks did 0 damage, and we're going to talk about Fennec in a little bit. The 3rd attack put through 2 damage through, so 3 attacks for 2 damage on Fennec. Just want to call that out. In round 3, after clearing the stun from my figures that he had spread around with BT and General Soren, I was able to use battlefield leadership with Han to finish off BT1. It would bring the rest of my figures in with Heart of Freedom and Urgency. I was then able to use Son of Skywalker once again with Leia and shuffled it back into the deck. I didn't redraw it after that, but the fact that I got to use it twice already felt quite powerful. So yeah, I activate Leia here with Son of Skywalker again, and able to take out Krennic with Han and Leia attacking together, and shuffle the Son of Skywalker back in, and destroyed the objective to make sure that the game ended at 42 to 0 there. So that kind of really locked it down that being able to recycle with Leia was just a lot too powerful when you could play the cards so much easier than you normally can. So that is why we ended up changing A New Hope. Alright, let's talk about meditation. Alright, so meditation, you can see here the original version was very powerful. And originally it didn't feel overpowered when we were playtesting it, because we were really focusing in on Jedi Luke to make sure it wasn't completely broken with him. We knew that players were going to be using Channel the Force to tutor it out at the start of the game to make sure it was always in hand round 1, which we were actually kind of okay with. We thought that would help with the play pattern. It does cost 3 strain to do that, so, and 1 point in your army. So we were thinking like, and 1 card unless you're using the Yoda combo, which is fine, because Yoda's with Channel is 5 points. So, and 3 strain. So what ended up happening though is, like, I'll show you this example game here with Luke, and let me bring up the new version where we changed. So the movement ended up being the problem, because I'll show you what happens here. We've got a game here with Rebel Jedi with Luke and Mara and Jyn Erso playing against a brawler empire list. So we see here that the Yoda is using Channel the Force to grab meditation from the deck, really before anything else is happening. And then we've got these riot troopers just rushing up to move really in close, with these Uskru doors going to open at the end of round 1. We've got Mara moving all the way up. We've got Royal Guard Champion moving all the way up. We just saw, before any of that happened, Luke, before Royal Guard Champion even moved up, we saw Luke had played Meditation. And then, of course, what happens? Take initiative, takes away initiative to the Rebel player from the Imperial player. The doors open at the end of the round, and even though a second chance gets played on Royal Guard Champion, we see Luke activate with his meditation turn and just goes ham on the Royal Guard. He gets the free movement and then the free attack. So he's going to get 3 attacks here because he's got heroic plus his normal attack plus the meditation attack. Actually isn't able to kill the Royal Guard Champion with just 3 attacks there, so does end up having to use looking for a fight plus parting blow to finish him off. So 4 attacks to kill the Royal Guard Champion, but yeah, pretty much deleted him with pretty large amount of cards. So this is the scenario we had kind of been testing for, was you get to move Luke 8 spaces, attack 3 times, and then maybe you get to use 2 more command cards to get a parting blow combo. And with Luke's damage output, as we saw, you maybe get like 12 to 14 damage. I mean, the Royal Guard Champion has, what, 13 health? Plus, 13 health plus 2 health for parting blow, or for second chance. So, about 12 to 14 damage, which puts him on par with what Vader's doing, with a similar amount of points and cards. Vader's 13 points, Luke with Channel is 13 points. Vader's often using Dark Energy plus Parting Blow to get his extra attacks, plus you're adding in Palpatine, usually to get that extra attack, or maybe now elite officers. Whereas Vader, though, is still way harder to kill, and Jedi Luke still goes down in about 3 good attacks, because, you know, the white dice and that extra evade just don't do a whole lot. Whereas Vader's got 2 black dice with a reroll and same amount of health, but he's also got Zillow Technique, whereas Luke has nothing really to help him. But in this case, it was even easier than that, because the Royal Guard player just kind of rushed into the slaughter after having seen Meditation get searched out by Channel, and saw Luke play Meditation and didn't have Negation in hand to stop the take initiative play. Instead of hanging back and allowing Meditation effect to expire during the next round, with maybe Luke having to make some tough choices about how to use those extra actions, he just kind of had the Royal Guard Champion right there waiting for Luke to delete him. I'm not saying that was wrong. I'm not calling out any kind of skill issue. What I do think, though, is it might be evidence of a different mindset between how the steering committee playtests these and how the public playtests these. Sometimes I feel like when the steering committee playtests the cards, because we have so many more cards to playtest that haven't been cut from the season yet, and because we have cumulatively so much fewer hours to playtest these cards than, you know, the larger number of players, I feel like our committee playtesters are oftentimes very hyper-focused on counterplaying the new card that their opponent is playing, whereas the general player base is more like playing the way they usually play when they play against something for the first time, not really thinking about what's about to happen to them with these new cards that we've made and that we would hope they'd be expecting to be played against them based on the figures in the opponent's lists. And then they get thrashed by them, and with the stuff that we thought seemed like had obvious counterplay, but it wasn't really actually obvious to people who are seeing these for the first time and hadn't been tinkering with these cards for months and months and months the way we had. Or people maybe just don't think that way before they've played against something. And again, which is not saying that one way or the other is the wrong way. It just shows that there might be a big gap between our internal playtesting and how that goes and the public playtesting. And that's why it's really good to do both, because, when it gets into the hands of the larger player base, it shows us the gaps in our perceptions and experiences with these cards. Anyway, this second game, so that's kind of what we had tested for, and again, we were trying to counterplay it when we had, the meditation is really telegraphed. You have to do it round one, and then it's like, well, you're already playing against melee, so you probably don't want to rush up into them. And then if you see the meditation, it's like, really don't want to get close. You want to hang back and force them to come to you with that, so that you can punish it with a counterattack when they do that with all your other figures. But let's look at the next one, which is going to be a game that I played. So this was against a hunter list, and I decided instead of playing Luke, which is what we had been doing, I wanted to try out more on the pummel side of things with Diala and Ezra. And Ezra is cool because he has a unique command card that for 1 point that lets you play a force user card from your discard pile. So that I also really wanted to try out some more. We had theorized about it, but we hadn't really gotten to really trying it out. Anyway, this second game was where we kind of realized we had missed something, because this was my league game where I decided I needed to explore more things with meditation besides just Jedi Luke and Parting Blow and stuff. I wanted to try out some possibilities with Diala and Ezra, mainly with how good meditation becomes with pummel, especially with Jedi that are already good at pummeling, like Ezra and Diala. And also with the possibility of replaying meditation from the discard pile with Ezra's unique command card, Learn by Example, for 1 point lets you play a copy of a force user command card in any discard pile, ignoring faction restrictions. Anyway, I end up meditating with Diala, and after getting too greedy with opening my opponent's door and contesting their terminal with Ezra, which left him exposed to Onar's legendary backhand, my opponent with initiative pretty much decided he couldn't risk an on the lam from Ezra going into round 2, I'm guessing, and which is why he decided he had to try and kill Diala before she could go off with meditation. But Diala survives the attack from Fennec and is able to activate, use Force Push to get Onar over to create a space between Onar and Hondo, and then uses the movement from meditation to get into position between them, and then by using Beat Pummel and the free attack is able to perform 3 attacks between the two of them, all of which get boosted by Beatdown, which ends up dealing 10 damage to Onar and killing Hondo thanks to Diala's search for Cleave 2. As the game goes on, I go on to finish off Bib, Greedo, and Onar in the ensuing melee, and that earns a concession from my opponent. I want to note here, though, that Fennec ends up ending the game alive once again. So that's going to be something we're going to talk about. Okay, but first we need to talk about Ewoks. So, Ewoks, yeah, I don't really know what to say about Ewoks. I think we were trying to design them with so many different converging aspects in mind that we didn't really take a very holistic approach to designing these guys. From my recollection, there were 2 different designs for Ewoks, and we ended up kind of merging them together into one, which involved, as you can probably tell, Ambush Ambush was one ability, so but Ambush was on one version, and then Sling Barrage was on the other one, and we couldn't decide which one we liked better. So we combined what we thought was the best of both worlds, and of course it was the best, and definitely a little bit too strong. As you can see here, I believe this is a Ewok attacking a Dark Trooper and just dealing a massive amount of damage, 9 damage from this Ewok attack, with the other 2 Ewoks contributing yellow dice to the attack. So yeah, we ended up increasing their cost from 5 to 6. They were too cheap. They were too annoying to kill because they had white dice for what was a less than 2 point figure, and they were doing way too much damage. They were already tuned to do a decent amount of damage for a 2 to 3 point figure with just their normal attack, and then you added the Sling Barrage on top of that. They were a little bit crazy, a little out of hand. Even though I know we tested them, I know they got tested with this version, but again, probably just a difference in attitude between the steering committee playtesting process and what the general public kind of goes through and experiences with the cards. So we can see here the Ewoks just going nuts. We've got the gold ones down at the bottom. Now these get eliminated here as the Dark Troopers counterattack. You see the Ewoks emerge to do a lot of damage. Once this door gets opened. Oh yeah, the beatdown with the Ewoks is insane. So the Ewoks spill out, and this focused hidden Ewok is going to be attacking to one-shot this Death Trooper. Oh, I guess not quite, thanks to Zillow technique. Also had to rein in their surge abilities. The surge for +2 was just too strong. It just didn't matter that it cost 2 surges when you have so many yellow dice, plus they're automatically hidden at the start of the game. But then we've got another one doing another sling barrage because it doesn't matter that they're stunned. So doing a bunch of damage to AT here. I think we showed this one in the original highlights video, so let's show one more. Hopefully one that you guys haven't seen yet. So again, the version you're seeing on the bottom right is the new updated version. Let me see. I can probably show you guys the old original version here in just a second. There we go. There's the original. And this looks like it's going to be a bloodbath, especially if the Jedi open the door here. It looks like that's the same list we saw with meditation. Yeah, it looks like they're both opening their door. And there's already one Ewok down. I believe there's 2 groups here of Ewoks. Here come the Ewoks. I'm gonna sling barrage Cassian there. 5 damage to Cassian. Looking at it, their sling barrage damage is actually pretty okay for like if it's just a 5-point figure attacking. I think the problem is when you can get all 3 of them attacking and one of them is a sling barrage, and then you just start doing insane amounts of damage. Here comes the beatdown from Jin. Okay, here's the 2 damage from the Ewok there. I think they went down into the Rancor pit. Looks like it ends there. So the Ewok player managed to win. So yeah, the feedback we got on Ewoks was too much damage when they could all get their attack off together, and too annoying to kill with a white dice and for how cheap they are. So hopefully a little bit more manageable now with this version. Alright, now it is time to move on to Fennec. So for Fennec, we made the much requested change to remove her second white dice and her guardian trait. I think for the design here, the second white die was on sort of an attempt to replicate the effects of R2's Lucky ability. So here's the original card. Without adding more text onto the card from having to add an ability like Lucky, there's kind of this current goal within the steering committee to keep cards as low text as possible, which I totally agree with. I think that's a great goal to have, because if you don't have that goal, then text boxes can just spiral out of control if you let them, and it becomes paragraphs on the card, like pages to read through. But for the steering committee during our internal playtesting, I think she was experienced more as a fun challenge to figure out how to ferret her out and kill her to get the bonus VPs. But the broader player base, it was just annoying to deal with 2 white defense dice on a figure that's that fast and has that much reach across the map with her range. Also, I remember that we were waffling back and forth during her design on whether she should be a Guardian or not based on flavor, but I don't think we really tested her with Clan of Two, which was enabled by her Guardian trait. And I think if that had come up during the playtesting, our internal playtest games with her, we probably would have leaned the other way and scrapped that Guardian trait. But I think the steering committee's initial determination that she wasn't actually overpowered was correct, like from a overall balance perspective. So far, she's been the most played Season 9 card, and I think her win rate is like 33% out of 9 non-mirror match games, right? So 1 in 3, she wins 1 in 3. So she's not dominating right now or anything. She's very popular, but she actually seems to have a bit of a learning curve to her in terms of how to play her. But yeah, we went ahead and removed the Guardian trait. Also seemed like the community wasn't really vibing with the idea that she was like a Guardian to Boba Fett in the Disney show. That was more of an indirect role she played by acting as his lieutenant, compared to someone like Chewie, who isn't like a career Guardian, but he's a Guardian because of his life debt to Han or whatever. So yeah, here we're seeing some gameplay with Fennec. This first one is just kind of emblematic of all the things that were making her a problem for people. Her high speed allows her to double move to the far side of the map, where she's often able to control an objective uncontested, and then she can threaten the opponent's flank with these long-range pokes. We also saw that in my previous game with J-Jax, where she basically just hiked over to the opposite side of the map that my figures were on, so the opposite from my figures, to contest my terminal. And then I ended up committing three attacks into her to try to deal with her, and they just bounced off of her because of the double white dice. But here she is able to finish off Luke after Luke takes some parting shot damage from Greedo. She's able to use that speed to get all the way over to Luke and attack. And then, when Chewbacca plays Debts Repaid to ready and activate again, she is able to absolutely tank a focused Chewbacca attack, thanks to how strong the power of Clan of Two is with the double white defense dice. So removed a attack dice from Chewie and weakened him. So only took 3 damage. Eventually she does blank out against Han here and goes down. But all the attacks that were spent on Greedo and Fennec give Adam here the time and the extra damage he needs to scoop up all these objective weapons in the northern part of the map and ready this big attack here where he basically raids the New Hope player's side of the board and gets a bunch of kills because he had all the weapons on abandoned research. In this other game, we see how extremely effective she is at kiting lists that don't have good long-ranged attacks, in order to basically stay alive for as long as she wants to. Here we've got her playing against Vader, doing Vader things, rolling up to the Uskru doors before they open to use his end of round. Vader rolling defense like a god here, eventually takes out Mando and Bosk, and puts 10 damage on Onar as well. Multiple attacks from Driven by Hatred, Palpatine, Parting Blow combo, and Dying Lunge. Before Vader finally goes down. But Fennec has just been hanging out in the background, able to contribute to the damage without having to move into danger from any of the other figures. Also able to contribute to the list damage output without putting her in any danger. And in the end, she's able to pick up enough points from killing officers and damaged figures to eke out the win. Although the Vader Pal player actually missed the win here. He actually could have moved Thrawn from where he started here to go 1, 2, 3. If he had moved here, he would have had line of sight to to Onar's bottom 2 corners. I double checked and that was correct. So unfortunately the Vader player did miss that play and could have won this game. But we're going to see in a second when they try to attack Fennec, if you don't have 4 like 3 dice attacks to put into her, this is where we see what the huge difference between what lucky looks like and what 2 white defense dice look like, right? Because Lucky can't get 2 blocks and 2 evades, but that's what we see with 2 white dice. So it's quite a bit more powerful than just a 1/3 chance at a dodge. Anyway, regardless of the result, the play pattern is the same. Fennec doesn't die because she doesn't really ever need to be placed in danger to contribute to the game. And again, that's because of her 5 speed and the fact that she has such long range without needing to focus her from an external source. Alright, one final example of this play pattern in action. And maybe this is showing how Fennec is just particularly oppressive against melee lists especially. But in this game, Adam, who's playing Fennec, knows that I cannot just charge into his herd of 8 3-dice attackers with my 4 attacker melee list. So you can see what's happening here. I need to set up my positioning carefully on my side of the doors on this first turn to either draw him to me or have enough tempo in round 2 to launch an attack without being punished too badly by a counterattack. So because he knows I need that middle door to stay closed to protect me, he just moves Fennec down to the far south. I'm going to move it down here just a little bit so we can see. She's right here, camping on that objective. Got 2 VPs from that. By the way, this was a really fun game because I got to use Royal Guard Champion's Executor a couple times thanks to this positioning behind this wall. But anyway, so he moves her down to this far objective, and then on the next turn, he opens the door with her. And now all of a sudden, he is threatening my terminal, which is up here. Because Fennec can easily reach range 10 with 90% accuracy thanks to her reroll. And a blue, 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 green. There's pretty much nothing I can do to threaten her back without sending half of my army over there to try and kill her. In which case she just survives and runs away in the time it takes me to get down there. So now I'm forced to vacate my terminal the next round and give up a command card draw each turn. Again, trying to play the long game here. Or I risk losing my terminal sitter and 2 points. So lose-lose for me. 2 white dice and Guardian trait are a bit too effective at being kind of a one-man army that can flank your whole force, that the opponent either had to commit several times with points to deal with, usually unsuccessfully, and also the fact of generally making it easy to prevent her from dying, and thus easy to nullify the only downside she has, which is bounty, which made her often feel extremely undercosted and overpowered. And she's designed around being a 7-point figure more than a 5-point one. Because, of course, the idea is she's supposed to give you 8 points when she dies, but she only costs 5 to bring in your army, so the idea was to try to find that kind of middle point between 5 and 8 for her power level. So as I said, this is one where there are some differing theories about which part of her design is causing the most problems, but it was pretty much agreed that the double white dice and the Guardian trait for sure needed to go. So now we're going to keep an eye on her and whether the things that remain with her, which are, the 5 speed, the easy range 10 attacks with no outside support, and the bonus defense that she now has, if those continue to make it too difficult or annoying to get the bounty off of her to justify her 5-point cost, then we might have to consider making another change. And finally, we have Karsantin, which is the last one I'm going to go into detail for. This is another one where he is actually pretty balanced in his 9.0 version in terms of how he's performing, at least. He's actually winning under 50% of his games. Another one who's one of the more popular figures, but basically having Pierce 2 for free on his base attack without requiring a surge was creating unfun situations for people where he just kind of feels like, in combination with his Knuckle Duster and Disarm abilities, he kind of makes defense dice feel irrelevant, which is a problem because it should not be unfun to be rolling dice, basically. And here's his 9.0 version. Again, if you want to see the changes that were made and the details, check out my article on ia-continuityproject.com goes into the details, but we basically move the Pierce around so it's no longer innate to his attack. Instead of, so he makes defense dice feel kind of irrelevant because blocks and evades kind of feel irrelevant against him. At least the black defense dice. That was the feedback we got, was black defense dice feels pretty pointless against his attacks and his abilities. Only white defense dice really kind of matter because it can dodge all of his Pierce and stuff. So we wanted to instead tie the Pierce that he gets more to his abilities, to have more interaction between his abilities, the defense dice, and how much the fighting has progressed and how much damage he's taking. So now we've split up the Pierce, so the Pierce 1 is tied to a Surge ability, and the other Pierce 1 of the Pierce 2 is tied to his Full of Rage ability that triggers when he suffered 3 or more damage and gives him an automatic focus, which we've also tweaked by removing his +1 block and compensating by increasing his health by 2. So if I, again, go back to the updated version here, you can see he has 15 health and no longer has the +1 block. This does make it easier for the ability to turn on because it's more likely that he will take at least 3 damage from a single source the first time he takes damage. But more importantly, it removes the feel bad from playing the card where it feels like his abilities are working against each other. In games, cards just feel better when they actually work together with themselves in harmony rather than fighting against each other, especially when it's on the same card. Like, you don't have to have all cards in the game work together as combos, but when abilities and text is on the same card, it's really good to have it, if not work in concert with each other, at least don't get in each other's way, right? That just looks like, it feels like bad design when you're playing a card and it has text on it that gets in the way of other text on the card. Unless it's, I mean, there's a vein of design where you're trying to create kind of a mini game or a challenge, but there's nothing here that does that because it's up to your opponent whether Karsantin gets attacked or not. And so then when they finally do attack Karsantin, and this is the part where you're supposed to get 3 damage and turn on Full of Rage, but you can't because there's a +1 block that's making you only take 2 damage from this attack instead of 3. Like, it feels terrible, and who are you going to get upset with? The person who designed the card, of course. So, you know, the designer's kind of responsible for that and avoiding the feel bad when you're playing, because we don't want people to feel bad when they're playing this game. Anyway, here's the main game that I'll show that kind of showcased this effect for us, and I think generated the initial feedback about his abilities making defense dice feel kind of irrelevant against him. So this was against Vader, of course, because Vader is all about the black defense dice. Vader and Second Sister are engaging with this Wookiee warrior on round 1, and Karsantin double moves over there to react to this, and is able to stun Second Sister with his Knuckle Duster ability. I'm going to put up the original 9.0 version so you guys can see what is happening. Vader does his end of round attack on the Wookiee, who unfortunately rolls a triple block and has the parry in hand, so able to stop the surge for Pierce 3 and only takes 2 damage. Vader then moves past Second Sister in order to attack Karsantin on his activation, but gets caught and interrupted by Parting Blow from Karsantin here, who is a brawler, combined with the apt element of surprise here, as I'm sure Vader was not expecting that to happen. He's actually overlapping Second Sister here. This attack is happening. And then we also see that Karsantin is benefiting from the extra Pierce 1 from Fury of Kashyyyk, which is the Rebel skirmish upgrade that rewards Wookiee list building. So of course that means that Karsantin's being played in a Rebel list thanks to Saska. But this kind of just exacerbates the problem and something we need to design around, because he was played in multiple Rebel Wookiee lists by players during the playtesting period, not just in Scum. But so we've got Pierce 1 from Fury of Kashyyyk added on to Element of Surprise, taking away one of Vader's black die. So this is all kind of exacerbating this problem of making it feel like dice are worthless. There's already a lot of cards in the game that do make dice kind of irrelevant. So to have Karsantin also just always having Pierce 2 every time he attacks, kind of, you know, maybe the straw that broke the camel's back there. Vader Vader takes 8 damage here, and he hits Carsantin back for just 5 damage, which unfortunately has also now turned on his Rage ability. Unfortunately here, Derek, who's playing the Carsantin Wookiee list, he illegally plays Heart of Freedom on Carsantin to clear the stun he got from the parting blow. Derek did realize this after the game, and he let all of us know what happened and that it was a mistake. But unfortunately, there's not much you can do about that kind of thing after the fact, and it was an honest mistake that both players missed. So anyway, I don't think it really mattered that much here, as we'll see in just a moment. Carsantin only needed one action to do what he's about to do. So, but he does recover some damage, but he recovers just enough damage so that he's still pretty angry. So here, Derek goes on to play Carsantin's command card, which is Disarm, which is going to deal 1 damage and weaken Vader permanently. And then he is going to play Grizzly Contest, which is a 2-point brawler card to deal 2 more damage. Non-attack damage just goes straight through defense dice. So we're starting to see a pattern here. In addition to that, he also attacked Vader with a focus thanks to Full of Rage. Also had the Pierce 2 innate, didn't need any surges for that. So at this point, he has attacked Vader and dealt 3 damage with this attack, which means 11 damage total from both attacks. And he's done 3 damage through command cards to Vader without attacking, without him rolling any defense dice. And then, of course, he gets to use the Knuckle Duster ability. He high rolls for the 2 damage, which is just enough to finish off Vader here, which we can kind of see now where you could definitely feel, if you're the Vader player, like, I took a bunch of damage, and for most of that, I didn't get to roll my defense. So it's very understandable that we got that feedback. In addition to all that, like so he's Disarm, he's got Knuckle Dusters, Grizzly Contest. If he wanted to, he could even play Wookiee Rage. He put 2 copies of Wookiee Rage in the deck, and now you've got lots of sources of unmitigated damage that goes through defenses. So maybe I think that's another issue that we might have to address with Carsantin. Maybe he's a bit overloaded on non-attack damage effects. In addition to the problem that the Pierce 2 is causing, where black dice felt meaningless against his attacks. Not to mention, he's a hunter, so he has access to heightened reflexes and feint as a brawler that can also remove defense dice rolls. So yeah, I can see how that all added up to feeling like black dice didn't matter against him. And definitely wondering if maybe might look at Disarm and Knuckle Dusters again and how they're combining with other non-attack damaging cards that can be played with him. Alright, and finally the other final change was to Fifth Brother. Some players were reporting that his attack was feeling underwhelming for 8 points, so we swapped out a blue die for a green die. A small change, but hopefully one that feels impactful. I'm not going to go over any game logs with Fifth Brother. You kind of got to see one where I played against Adam. The only comments I have from Fifth Brother is that a lot of people, including me, seem to be trying to play him with Royal Guard Champion for some reason, and I think that's just not correct. Royal Guard Champion's important command cards are not actually Brawler, or certainly not Force User cards. His Royal Guard Champion's important command cards are Guardian cards, melee cards, and his unique command card. Melee cards being stuff like Death Blow and Pummel and Dying Lunge. So Fifth Brother really isn't doing anything for him, I think. So if you're still playing Fifth Brother with Royal Guard Champion, maybe give it a rest. I don't think you're going to be breaking the meta anytime soon with that combination. I think the 2 things that people should start focusing more on with Fifth Brother is his place in the Vader Palpatine deck as an enabler for consistent access to turn 2 parting blow combos. Even freeing up army points and command deck points by, cutting redundant copies of cards that were run for consistency so that you would always draw them by turn 2. And cutting Rule by Fear for the same reason, because you don't need that redundancy anymore. You can just search for those cards with Fifth Brother at round 1. And you should be able to get both of them by round 2. And the other list he needs to be tested in is double riot troopers with flame troopers with Dr. Afra. This is a list I'm concerned about because Fifth Brother is a reliable way to get beatdown out of the command deck by round 1 to play as a 0 point +3 damage card with riots and flame troopers, which are the only 3-figure brawler group. And yes, the flame troopers do benefit from the +1 damage as long as you activate one of the riot troopers first and use the card with the riot trooper. And then when you add in reinforcements, you get to make sure that your riot trooper groups are always full. Throw in some strain cards too for good measure. The riots and Fifth Brother both have strain abilities on their attacks. And then you add that in with the flame troopers who also deal strain. You can use escalating hostility to deal even more strain. Your opponent's deck's going to be empty, or they're going to be taking a bunch of damage from all the strain effects. This is actually the list I'm worried about. And I've got an example list here on the screen. I just threw this together really quickly. This is kind of what I'm thinking is going to be the problem, but this is a 40-point list with 15 points of command cards. But I don't know if this might not be optimized. I'm sure there's other options that I've not looked at. This is just kind of what I grabbed and threw together. The beatdown card was originally only meant for single figure activations, but it was kind of broadened late, not late in development, but in the middle of development, it was broadened to work with multi-figure brawler groups. And I think we haven't really fully explored what is possible with beatdown in a list like this one, with Afra to recycle the beatdown multiple times. And by the way, Afra with Rule by Fear is a really strong combo too, but don't discard the beatdown with Rule by Fear. Get 2 uses out of it. So yeah, I'm hoping that we see somebody test a list like this going into the 2nd month of Season 9. So that's it. That's all the changes. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, me going through kind of my thoughts on them. Some of them I liked, some of them I'm a little bit concerned still about, thinking maybe we didn't change enough. I do like the cards we chose to change, and I like that we're going to give it another month before. There's some other cards that I think we're kind of worried about, but these were the big ones that we knew we had to change first, and we didn't want to make a bunch of noise by changing these big ones and changing the small ones at the same time and not being sure what was impacting things the most. So we're going to give it another month, and then the things that I think are going to come to the surface, hopefully, as long as you guys keep playtesting, keep playing your league game once a week, keep grabbing pickup games, sending your game logs, super helpful. I just want to acknowledge that, to everybody, all of you who are playtesting this content, your playtesting efforts are invaluable. It is really giving us the data and the feedback we need to make the changes we need to. A lot of the changes are just coming straight from you guys, suggestions and feedback, and we're listening, and we hear what you guys are saying. Not all feedback is correct or leads to, or not all suggestions are correct. I just want to say that as well. But we're listening, and we know the good ones from the ones we're seeing, and we know which ones to go for. So thanks everybody for watching. I will catch you on the next video.